Glad you're on tonight on the Rense Radio Network. I am Jeff Rense, and up next is Benjamin Fulford, live from Tokyo. Are you there, Ben?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great to hear your voice. Hope you're doing well. There are many people tonight wishing that your 100,000 ninjas would be dispatched immediately to try to take back from the Western world the evil which has clearly slipped its full hands around the throat of liberty and life and the pursuit of happiness, not to mention our Constitution and Bill of Rights over here. We are losing fast and dropping like a rock.
Well, I'm hearing, actually, that it's quite close now to endgame.
You bet it is.
And that the whole kind of structure of Washington, D.C. is going to collapse, possibly even within a week. My friend, there is no way in hell Washington, D.C. is going to collapse. Washington, D.C. is owned and operated by the very people who are driving this planet to extinction. They are not in trouble of losing control. They are not going to be evicted. In point of fact, the Israeli Zionists have said that they would take the entire world down rather than give up their power and control and existence as a so-called democracy in the Middle East. So I have to disagree with you. And I explained to him very clearly that the Jews were probably the most brainwashed people in the history of the planet. And that one thing they must learn above all else is that there's going to be no Holocaust. Nobody's going to hurt them. Nobody's going to get them. Nobody's going to harm them. They have nothing to be afraid of.
Correct.
They actually sent somebody to talk to me, and this is what I told them. I said, look, nobody's out to get you. You know, get rid of this persecution complex already. And, you know, again, it seems when you're in the United States that their control grid is total and there's nothing you can do about it, but you cannot see the data that really matters. Now, you've all seen, or if you haven't, you should take a look at the St. Louis Federal Reserve Board chart of what's been happening to the amount of dollars the Feds have been printing. It's just gone, they've created astronomical amounts of dollars, like trillions and trillions of dollars out of nowhere.
Right.
But the money isn't being accepted by anybody on Earth, not even in the U.S. It's just, they're printing, but nobody's accepting their money anymore.
Well, Bernanke said that...
You can verify this in many different ways.
Yeah.
With stuff available in the corporate media or on the government data sites. But, you know, like I've said before, they were cut off in September of 2008, and they've been playing for time, using every trick in the book ever since then. But you can verify this in several ways. I've said this before, but it's very important. Check something called the Baltic Dry Index. It's the price of shipping stuff.
Sure.
And you'll find it fell 90% immediately after September 2008.
Right.
That means, and then if you look at U.S. imports of cars, say, for Japan, they fell 76% year on year, all of a sudden. Their printing press is being cut off from the rest of the global financial system. Bankers are being arrested, and the thing is collapsing. Look at what's happening in Europe, too, with this so-called Greek crisis. Basically, what's happened is the rest of the world has stopped financing, Zionist armies. They won't give money to NATO and to massive, murder of civilians anymore. So, because the money's not flowing into Europe, the Europeans are all going begging to the Germans, the only Europeans that still have some savings, and the Germans are saying, no, we don't want you to, why should we retire at 67 so that a Greek can retire at 63? Why should we work overtime so those guys can have their 3-hour siestas? And they're saying, no, we ain't going to pay. And that means the euro is going to disappear. There's going to be a Mediterranean currency that will be devalued, and then the old Deutschmark, the euro will become the Deutschmark, expanded to some Nordic countries, basically. But that whole experiment is falling apart. Their attempt to create a fascist world government using this carbon thing fell apart because they got no money. Nobody's listening to Obama at the UN anymore. They're just not. They don't pay attention. It just looks bad within the United States because that's the heart of their power still. But even there, I've been contacted by people from the Pentagon. You've heard of General Stubblemeyer. former head of military intelligence. He's leading a group that's out to get them, among others. This is happening, even as we talk. There's a major power struggle going right now in Washington, D.C., and it involves control of the dollars. The states are trying to take it back from Washington. Each state is going to start producing their own money soon, according to this plan. And they're fighting tooth and nail, but there's just nothing they can do. Really. They've been, I know it sounds hard to believe, but just look at the disconnect between what you see in the British papers and in the American corporate propaganda media. You will see a disconnect, too. You have a British parliamentary inquiry, okay, asking that Condoleezza Rice and Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney appear to see if they're war criminals or not. You can't tell me things aren't changing when you see evidence like that. It's right out in the open. You look at what's happening in Japan. They're basically, their control grid here is falling apart. The Japanese are no longer forking over their savings to this military machine. They don't want to become a Chinese colony, and they want to ally themselves with the United States as soon as they get rid of this sort of criminal Nazi government. But they're not going to support the criminal Nazi government anymore. And I know because I talked to the highest sort of right-wing police, yakuza, military types. I mean, at the top, you got to understand this. People who actually control means of violence, that is to say police, military, gangsters, and these, at the top, they're all linked. This is true in Japan, it's true in Europe, it's true in the U.S. When I talk to these people, and they're making it very clear that they're not going to do this anymore. And then you can check these statistics, okay? Look at the net selling of U.S. treasuries by Japan and China and Russia. Now, until now, what they did was they just stopped buying. But now they're actually dumping what they have. And another sign of the economic warfare against the Feds that you can see is that announcement by China that they're going to have a trade deficit in March. Now, I don't think that's bad news for China, but it's not at all. It's part of their strategy. What's behind that trade deficit is an 80% jump in commodities imports. In other words, they are buying all the real stuff with real money all over the world and preventing the Feds from buying stuff with funny money. And they're now going to have enough currency, enough commodities to back a new currency. If the Americans go ahead with their plan to create an AMRO, for example, and this is one Fed plan that they're still pushing behind the scenes.
Not going to happen.
No, because it would be a devaluation. And with the rest of the world, and as I said before, it's very important to understand 90% of the dollars ever created are not owned by Americans, and the rest of the world is not going to see their dollars turn into garbage. They just won't let that happen. So they've already cut off the Fed dollars from the rest of the dollars, as I've said before, and they're going to back these dollars that are held internationally with commodities and gold. And it'll be a reality-based system again. They'll no longer be able to, produce illusions known as high finance to con people. Those days are ending. I mean, the evidence is everywhere. It's not like something, okay, sure, they passed this so-called health care law. Well, that's kind of their last hurrah. They did it on the spring equinox, the holy.
Well, you need to read. You need to read, Ben. There's an article by a constitutional attorney I've put up, or it should be up now, Michael Conley, and he read the entire 2,700 pages, or however many there were. It is a transfer of power to the executive branch away from the Constitution. It is a horrific tool of destruction.
But it's not going to happen. It's all talk.
Well, he's already signed it, and the Senate is working on its version now. Look, this is...